Welcome to Right Fit Leader, a podcast from Alec, Broadfoot, and the Hire with Confidence team at VisionSpark. This is where visionaries, entrepreneurs, and leaders learn how to hire leaders, lead better, and build teams that last. Through expert insights, real client stories, and conversations with top leaders, you will hear how we find A players for your business. This is Right Fit Leader.
Welcome back to the Right Fit Leader podcast, where we explore how visionaries can elevate their leadership, surround themselves with the right people, and scale their companies without losing the culture and core values that matter most. I'm your host, Alec Broadfoot, joined with me today by co-host Jennifer Young, and today we welcome someone who embodies clarity, authenticity, and purpose-driven leadership. Benny Fisher is a visionary entrepreneur, a strategist for founders, and the host of the Big Fish Cares podcast. He leads The Pond, a community built for founders who want real clarity, meaningful connection, and authentic growth. Benny is known for his heart, his honesty, and his ability to help leaders course correct fast with what he calls a fresh brain and a clear heart. Benny, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Alec, and good to see you, Jennifer. It's always fun to hang out with the people at VisionSpark, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn from you today, Benny. I feel like I always do when I'm in your presence. So excited to hear from you. I know you've been working hard and you created The Pond in the most recent time frame here, the last year or so, as a place for founders to really find clarity and connection and authentic growth. So what problems were you really seeing with in the entrepreneurship world that really inspired you to build this community?
Well, for me, it's the lack of connection with other like-minded people. And, I've been involved in communities and masterminds and groups. Like I've been doing that stuff for like 5 years now. So it's kind of second nature for me at this point. But everywhere, when I go around the country and when I meet entrepreneurs, that's not second nature. So I think sometimes we forget, like if you're already in the circles, it's not as big of a deal because you have some people and you kind of know how to navigate around communities and things like that, and you're kind of ebbing and flowing. But there are still, I would say, 90% of entrepreneurs out there that aren't a part of a community where they feel that they feel like they can be safe in, seen. They can be vulnerable. They can be around people that they just enjoy connecting with, because as fast paced as life is, as fast paced as business, and even with this new AI stuff, it's almost like pushing us away from human connection even more. And so I'm like super the opposite. Like I love all that stuff. I think AI is great. I think, having a family is great. Having a business is great. But how do we get around more people that are experiencing the same things that we're all going through as entrepreneurs? And so that's the number one reason I started it. And I never felt like I fit in a lot of places. And so I figured out, at least worst case scenario, I have a place where I can fit in. And then the people that are around me, hopefully they feel like they can fit in. And we can do life together for the next 10, 15, 25 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. One thing I loved how you described yourself, Benny, is a visionary navigator. And someone who hits the ceiling and course correct. What does that look like in practice? What kind of transformations are you seeing in the founders that you work with?
So first, I have to give proper credit to Gino Wickman for that term. I was on a call with him. He was mentoring me for a few months, and I was like, Gino, what's this thing that you're doing with me? I said, what is this called? I said, because I don't feel like it's like coaching. I feel like it's something bigger than that. He's like, Benny, I'm a navigator. I go, tell me more. And I was like, I like that term. I said, I feel like I do the same thing for entrepreneurs in my circle. I said, can I borrow that term? I'm going to start a website and I'm actually going to put it on there. And I know that Gino trademarks and copyrights things. And I said, it's not already trademarked, right? And he said, no. He's like, as long as you give me credit, it's good. I said, all right, cool. Here's the credit. So that's the plug. But a visionary navigator to me, and I think Gino kind of taught me this as well, is it's really a trusted guide who helps entrepreneurs and visionary leaders navigate uncertainty, right? And so And like you said earlier, I think you said something about purpose. It's like I want founders to gain a deep sense of purpose and clarity around their purpose, figuring out their why, and aligning bold decision making with lasting impact, and most importantly, inner fulfillment. Because there's a lot of us that are in our jobs, right? Like, whether it's your first business or your fourth business, we attach so much of our identity to the widget that we sell or the thing that we do. And for the longest time, I did it the same thing. And I was like, what would it look like if I didn't have this business? Like, who would I be? Who am I? And, what do I really want to be doing in life? Like, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are always asking themselves that question, whether they're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 80 years old. It's like, all right, what do I want to be when I grow up? And so a navigator is just the person. When I think about a dark room, and for entrepreneurs, we have to go because we're by ourselves and nobody understands our problems. That's in our business. Like, our employees don't understand, our team members, our spouses don't usually get it. Our kids definitely don't get it most of the time. And so we go into these proverbial dark rooms that open up these doors, and we have to go through uncertain times. And we're by ourselves and it's dark and we can't, and there's no light in that room. And so eventually sometimes it takes us months or years to figure out where the light is, to turn the light on. And then, oh, guess what? Now there's another door. And then we have to open that door and it's black in there. And so it's this continuation of always having to do that. Well, I just want to be the guy that walks alongside you in that dark room and helps you find the light switch and shows you where the light switch is. And then when there's another door that we have to open, I say, hey, it's okay. And I shove you through that door. So that way it just goes a little bit faster, and that way you don't feel alone. And so it's like a navigator. It's kind of like, imagine if you were like Ray Charles or Stevie Wonder and you had someone standing beside you, taking you across the street. They're just navigating you across the street. I don't make people's decisions for them. I give them some options sometimes. I think, well, if you want to do this, you can do it maybe A, B, or C. Here's what's going to happen if you do A, B, or C. Here's the pros and cons of each. Guess what? You get to pick which adventure we go on, and I'm going to be there no matter what adventure you pick to help you go through the next adventure. And so to me, that's what a visionary navigator is.
Love it.
I love that. I know a lot of your work is really rooted in like purpose and clarity, like you just mentioned. What experiences or defining moments really shaped the way you see leadership today?
Well, the biggest one, I think, that really got my engines going about this, where I looked at myself as bigger than a CEO of a company, was my brother was tragically murdered in 2021. And I had just started my EOS journey. I had hired an implementer. I had just brought on the integrator. I had hired an executive assistant. I was like 6 months into my EOS life, and then this thing happened with my brother, and it gave me 2 or 3 weeks of grieving and being with my family in Ohio, being away from the business, being away from everything, just completely disconnected. I realized that, there's more to life than just owning and operating a successful roofing company. That's all great and everything, but I was like, there has to be more. And it was also very interesting that while I was gone, that I didn't have to, because I had a good integrator and because I had systems now, nobody asked me any questions while I was gone. Nobody bothered me while I was gone. And the business ran just as good, if probably better, when I was gone. And I just had this aha that, I always thought leadership was like, control, puppet everything, push all the buttons. And like, I had to do it all. And I quickly learned, it could be the exact opposite. You could just completely let go and it's going to be okay. And then I had another situation just here recently where I actually sold 80% of my business. And it's funny because that's really letting go. Okay. That's like really letting go. And it's like, yeah, someone else is running your business. Someone else is like the owner, gets to make all the decisions. They don't even ask me any questions anymore. And, it's just, I get a P&L every quarter and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I mean, it's just kind of cool. Like, I'm literally not doing anything. And I see my trucks out there. People still come up and tell me like, hey, you did my neighbor's roof. And I'm just like, whew, that's wild. That's like a very good, to me, it's like the ultimate form of leadership. If you can create a system and create people and a culture that can keep on going long after you're gone. And that's what I find very, very fulfilling.
Yeah. That's really good. Well said. From your perspective, what gets in the way of clarity for visionaries?
I would say their mind is full. It's on overload. Their brain is on overload. And so what I mean by that is, I don't know when this podcast is going to air. Is it going to air before Christmas time?
I think so. Yeah.
All right. So if you're listening to this, we're filming this like early December. So think about, remember going over to your grandma's house and she had like the Christmas snow globes like put out, and then you could shake them up and you'd see the snow like everywhere. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That's how most entrepreneurs' brains are. Okay. Like there's like, it's just shaking all the time. Their brain is just shaking. There's snow everywhere. You can't see through it. It's very unclear. We don't ever let ourselves settle. You know, we don't take time and just let all of that calm down, because we're always on the go. We're always doing instead of being. And I think that's, it's a cause of a lot of things. It's, some, I would call it deep rooted childhood trauma issues probably. And then that's where I've learned in my life is where it all probably stemmed from. This need to achieve, this need to be liked, this need to be driven, to win, to be competitive. Like it all came from things in my childhood, which served me well in business and served me well in a couple of things. But you don't, no one ever teaches you on how to pause. It's like I have a Ferrari engine in my brain with like Schwinn bicycle brake pads. Like it just like, and so it just, there's no, how can there be clarity, right? Like if I'm just always going fast and I'm always on the Autobahn, how could I see the peaceful water somewhere, right? Because I'm always going so fast. And so I think the root of that is just settling your mind down. And what I found at work is, trying to create time for silence, or just slowing down, whether it's, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. They say most entrepreneurs only need 30 minutes because our bodies and our brains are so good at doing things fast. Like even we can meditate. We only need 30 minutes. We don't have to sit somewhere on a hill for, 3 days to like get value out of meditation. We can do it in 30 minutes and we'll be good for the day. We'll make clear decisions. We'll have more peace in our life. And I think that's where it starts, with clarity.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah. Now you've also spoke openly about the role that faith has played in your journey. How would you say that's guided you in your as a leader?
Yeah, I love that question. Thanks for asking that. So me and God have always had a touch and go relationship, especially when I was in my 20s and even early 30s. I kind of got away from being connected to him pretty much because I was in overdrive. My brain was in overdrive. I was running from, my own self. I was, creating things and having to put out fires and problems. And when you're doing that fast and you're not doing it, listening to God, and you're doing it on your own, eventually you'll get slowed down. And, I call it those God moments. And then he'll put those moments in your life to where kind of like you realize like, oh, I need you. And so I did it the old fashioned way, through trial and error and enough stubbornness. And thankfully I'm still alive for all these 2x4 moments that like, now I just know that like, I got to stay connected to God. The more I stay connected to God, the more I slow down and talk to him and realize that I'm fully dependent on him. And as much as my old human meat suit like wants to do it Benny's way, like, and I'm still working on this. I'm a work in progress. I just need to submit more to God and his will for my life, and know that he's always there for me, no matter what. It's me that sometimes is afraid to go to him because I'm either ashamed or embarrassed or whatever. But now I've realized through different points of my life that he loves us so much that it's not the same as love down here, like, or like your mom and dad, or, like, because we've seen people get mad at us before. We've seen people like not talk to us anymore, or like cut us off from a relationship. God doesn't do that. God is always there. The the path is always open. We just have to be the ones to choose to open it up and go and talk to him. And so it's a work in progress. I know my one of the EOS people. You guys know Don Tinney, right? Who Don Tinney is?
Yeah.
So I've gotten to know Don Tinney over the last year or so, and he's by far and away my most favorite human in the whole EOS worldwide ecosystem. And I have a lot of favorites over there. I love those people. But what I've been learning from him about staying close to God is just that's where the real ROI is for anybody looking for like the real life hack. That's a closer relationship to God and Jesus is like just unbelievable. The amount of good things that can come out of it, the fruit, if you will.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but great things about Don Tinney, and I've not met him, and so hopefully I'll meet him someday. I've heard just tremendous.
Well, just send me a note. Well, I'll set up an email right now, and I'll introduce you guys because he's an amazing guy. He's got a program out because he realized that he wasn't doing a great job of sharing the gospel. And he was even in the church, and he was doing all the things in his church group. And he just realized that, like, man, I can teach someone business. I can teach someone EOS in my sleep. He's like, well, why can't I share the gospel? Like, why am I not as good at sharing the gospel? And I think a lot of us Christians can probably relate to that. Like, we know when it is, like, for ourselves, but like, man, we have a hard time teaching it. Or like even salespeople, like, I'm really good at sales, but I have a hard time teaching salespeople to other people. Well, Don created his own like almost like slideshow course. It's called Knowing God and His Gospel.org or .com. And he's got this whole program to where you can take someone through the gospel. And that's what his big passion project is. That's what actually his whole life's work is right now, is he's been working on this project, and it's fascinating. It's really cool. And I think more people should check it out.
Yeah, that's great. Well, yeah, if whoever's listening, be sure to check that out. So, Benny, you are building like a community of founders and visionaries. And what do you think leaders often misunderstand about building real community?
The leaders that are building the community, or the leaders that are attending the community?
The leaders that are attending.
That I think what they misunderstand. Let's see. I think that they don't realize how important it is because either they've never done it or they've never been a part of a good one. And when I say good, just basically one that aligns with their values, because that's really all it takes is for you to be value aligned, and to show up, realizing that you have to give more than you take. A lot of people join these groups and they just think they're going to be takers, right? And that's not going to help. You got to go with an open mind and open heart. You got to be willing to share. And I think realizing that there's a lot more people that have the same type of issues and problems that are going on. We had a call today, actually, just a couple hours ago. And we talked about, resetting our energy for next year. And a couple of the guys were talking about areas that they struggle in, and sleep is one of them. Sleep is a hot topic. And it's interesting because when you came to the founders meetup, the entrepreneur barbecue that I had at my house, Alec, you were talking to everybody about your Whoop watch, right? Like you have like I think it's called a Whoop.
Yeah, a Whoop band. Yeah.
It attracts your sleep and everything like that. And I think, if you're by yourself and you're like struggling with sleep and it's in your head and you don't really know what to do about it, and then all of a sudden when you get around 3 or 4 other people, they're like, yeah, I struggle with sleep too. Well, guess what? Now you can start sharing best practices, ideas, holding each other accountable, sending a group text message at 10 o'clock and say, get to bed. I mean, there's just so much value that can come out of something as silly as when I say like, oh, hey, I just need to get more sleep. But it's not really silly because that sleep is going to cause a better morning for you. You're going to have more energy in the afternoon and the evening for your family. You're going to show up better for your team members. You're going to make better decisions. And so, you don't always have to be learning about how to scale and grow your business all the time to get value out of a community. You never know where the value is going to come from. It can come from a simple conversation like sleep.
Love that. Now, I know, Benny, you're really a gifted storyteller. I've had the privilege of hearing you on a big stage on one or two occasions, and a great podcast host as well. How do you think your storytelling has shaped your leadership and really your ability to connect with people on a really deeper level than just surface?
That's a great question. I would say we're all storytellers. Some are just better than others. I would say we've all been to family barbecues or entrepreneur meetups where you get around someone and their stories aren't necessarily the most well thought out, or sometimes they go on forever. Sometimes they only give you 2 words, and so there's an art to telling a story. But everyone is a storyteller. We're either just good or bad at it. I think it's important to share stories, and so I feel like God's given me a gift to be able to talk about my own personal story, not to shine a light on me more so, but just more to inspire other people to share their story. Because I believe that when you share your story, that there's something very healing about that. When you can, even if it's one to one, I don't think you got to go be like Benny and get on a stage in front of thousands of people to be able to get healing from this. But even if you just shared your story, something that was close to your heart that you've never shared before, that you just feel like you just need to get it out, right? Whether it's for a therapist, whether it's to your spouse, your kids, to your integrator, whatever that looks like, is sharing something that's sacred like that with someone that trusts you and that loves you. And when you share that, you get amazing feedback, back hopefully that, hey, you're not alone. It's okay. We love you, right? Because a lot of times we're afraid to share stuff because we're afraid that everyone's going to run away from us. And what I've learned is the exact opposite, actually. That's just something that I've made up in my own head, almost in a perpetual fear cycle to keep me kind of shackled to that old self. And so by sharing stories, you kind of free yourself. You kind of let go a little bit, and it just kind of sheds a layer every time you tell that story to a different group or different person. And I think short stories, we can learn a lot. I would much rather learn from you guys on something that could be impact me, rather than me have to go through it myself. That's the long way to learn something. And so, typically we're kind of all stubborn human beings, and sometimes we have to learn on our own. But it's like, even it's something as simple as hiring a number 2, right? Like what you guys specialize in. Well, you have hundreds of stories on good and bad hiring processes and people, like skills for that stuff. And it's like, I'd rather learn from all your stories and your client stories, than me have to go through 100 bad hires or 100 hires in a row to be able to do that. And so that's where stories can kind of really come into shape. You can kind of learn at scale through storytelling. And so you got to be a good listener, and then you also got to give back, and you got to share your story every once in a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's power in being transparent, right? And build connection and trust. And people want to be around others that they know, like, and trust. So, yeah. Benny, I know you practice giftology, and, you've done it at a level that's genuinely memorable. I know, because I've been on the receiving end of your generosity. What drives your philosophy around giving?
Wow. Well, I would believe it starts when you're a child, and you remember, and again, we're around Christmas time. So I'll just use Christmas as an example. You remember being so excited to wake up Christmas morning and there would be gifts under the tree. And that's a magical moment as a child. But it's like, as soon as that's over, like when you're, 12, 13, or, even, through high school, if you still get some cool gifts from your parents, it's like when you get out in the real world, we don't think about gifting others. We just think about like going through the motions at birthdays and Christmases, right? And so why not take giving to a whole nother level and just have giving as part of your just everyday life, right? And so, especially where I'm at in the blue collar world, it's like, we show up every day, people are working really hard, but when you care about someone, it's like, how do we show that we care? Because some of us are really bad at words of affirmation too. I'm not the best at, telling everybody they're doing a good job. I'm getting better at it, But I know as a driven entrepreneur, we're going so fast. Like I said before, sometimes we forget to thank people. Sometimes we forget to, and it's not that we don't want to, it's in our heart, but we don't actually stop to say, thank you. You did such a great job today. Or, hey, let's go to lunch. It's just, we just are going fast. And so I think using gift giving as a strategic way to really show people that you care can be really cool. And Giftology is a book that's out that was written by John Ruhlin. John Ruhlin unfortunately passed away tragically last year. And I felt more inspired even through his story and then even his celebration of life service. And I started to do more research on everything that he was actually doing. I was like more inspired to like take action. But the reason I didn't take action is because sometimes, even buying gifts for my kids is like, stressful, because then I got to like figure out what they want. Then I got to go pick it out. Then I got to go wrap it. Then I got to go do all of this. And for us ADHD visionaries, that's where it stops. We had the idea in our head. We have the money for it and we had the idea. But what we lack, just like we lack everything else, we lack execution. And so Giftology has a program to where you can get a giftologist, kind of just like you have an integrator. So I have an integrator to help me with gifts, right? And she specializes in that.
Wow.
And it's basically just loving people just the way that Jesus loved people, right? And it's thoughtfulness that it's going to outlast time, right? And Giftology is big on gifts that are all about the person that you're giving them to. We don't put logos on stuff. We're not putting. You're not going to see a Big Fish Cares, podcast logo stamped over everything, or a roofing, logo stamped over everything. We're going to put things that matter to you. We're also going to try to give you gifts that are going to last a long time. So they don't really do technology. They don't want to do wearables. They want to do like stuff that's in your kitchen. Like, they're big on Cutco knives because that thing is going to last forever. A Cutco knife will last forever. And so those are just some examples. The other thing too with gifting is, a lot of people at the end of the day, like especially with entrepreneurs, like we don't necessarily care about the gift as much as we care about the relationship from the gift, right? And so, because people can copy your marketing, right? But people can't copy your relationships. So, like, that's the big game changer. That's kind of different. And that's also radical generosity. Like I think you were alluding to, it cuts through all the noise. I sent you a really cool gift, right? And you'll never forget it. It's like hard to forget that gift because every time you open it up, we know what happens. We won't have to get into all of it, but it is, it cuts through all the noise, and it makes you stand out in a meaningful way. We don't, at Giftology, they don't really like to, we don't like to give gifts at Christmas time or birthdays. Like we like to do things surprise and delight when people least expect it, because again, that adds a sense of special, unique, memorable, long lasting. And so when you do that in a systematic way, which Giftology's come up with a system to be able to do that, for whether it's for your clients, for your team members, for your family, like however you want to do it, they have options for everyone. And so that's why I love Giftology so much.
That is awesome. I love the connection that you make with other humans, and I know that's really important to you, but you're also passionate about the smart use of AI for founders and specifically contractors. So what do you think leaders should really understand about integrating AI into their companies really in a healthy and a strategic way?
That's Pandora's box. That's like a whole nother podcast, I feel like. But to give you the short answer is AI is, to me, it's like no different than using your computer or using a calculator or it's just a tool. You can do good things with the tool. You can do bad things with the tool, right? Like I can, my car is a tool. I could run people over, or I could take, a homeless person to the grocery store with it, right? So like, it's like you have to be cognizant of that. And so when people are like, "Oh, AI is going to take jobs," and all the negative stuff you hear, like, sure, also true. But then all the good stuff is also true, right? Just like everything else that we're using in our life, right? And so you got to use it responsibly. And I think the people that use it with good intentions and that really, are trying to do good with it are going to do good with it. And I think the reverse is also possible. But what to do in a company is, especially for, and this goes for anybody, but especially small business owners, man, when you don't have all those team members, you don't have all the access to a full-blown leadership team, you can pop stuff into like ChatGPT and you can prompt it, and you got to prompt it well. And again, that's why it's a full podcast to talk about all the ways to do that stuff. But you can act as a marketing manager and you can help me come up with a marketing plan. Like I can use it as like an advisor or consultant or a leadership team member and like have a conversation with it. It can get stuff done faster. I can, most visionaries are very unorganized in their mind, but if at the end of the day, you took everything that was out of your mind and just spoke it into your chat GBT and told it to organize your thoughts and prioritize your thoughts, guess what? Tomorrow morning when you woke up, you'd have a nice like 1-page thing of like all the things that you need to take care of. And it would be out of your head. It would give you more time for clarity, more time to work on higher level things, and give you more, help you become more creative, because that's another thing that we were all born with. We're all born in God's image and likeness, and we're all creators. But what happens is life beats you up, childhood beats you up, people shove you in a box. People end up doing stuff for the next, 40 years because, you made one decision in college because your dad told you should do this. And next thing you know, you're retiring at the same thing. The visionaries of the world, we are the ones that fight that because we have a little couple screws loose. And so we always fight that. Thank heavens we balance out the rest of the world and from all of us becoming government workers, and at the end of the day, AI can help you like not be in that rat race anymore. It can give you information faster, help you organize stuff at a level that, we just didn't have that access, even, I guess 3 years ago is when we really started using it. And so it's fun and exciting. I can definitely help with my vision, right? I can communicate with my employees a lot better too, because I was always bad at that. That's another thing that's good for visionaries. We don't communicate with our team in a very effective way. Like we have a quick conversation over here, we have another conversation over here. Nobody knows when the Christmas party is, right? Like it's like something as simple as that. But like all I got to do is sit down for 5 minutes and say, here, Christmas party, here's the vision for it, here's what it does. Send an email out to the whole team talking about the Christmas party. It makes me look like a hero, a rock star, just little things like that.
That's really good. Something I admire about you, Benny, is that you've overcome a lot in your life. How have those experiences shaped the way you lead and the way you help others navigate difficult seasons?
Well, 2 things I'll say about that. One, I think we've all overcome a lot. If you look back at your own life, anybody listening, if you look at your own life right now, you look back at all the things where life punched you and you got knocked down, you got back up, you'll realize it's happened thousands of times. Now, some are little, some are big. I happen to have a couple big ones that are, will put most people down for a long time, but I don't think it's me. I think it's the grace of God that I was able to come through some of those to be able to share those stories with you. And so I appreciate you saying that about me, but it's really all him. The second thing is he just gives me a ton of empathy. And I never really knew what the word empathy meant. I always knew that it was a kind of word, and I was like, I honestly didn't know what empathy was until like 2021. I mean, I've heard the word before, and if somebody would ask me, I'm like, no. Is it like sympathy? It rhymes with sympathy. Maybe it's the same word. I have no idea. I just started learning what that word was like 4 years ago. And it's really just putting yourself in another person's shoes and trying to really understand where they're coming from or where they've been. And the reason that a lot of people don't have it is because, again, we're like that snow globe. We're shaking. We're going 1,000,000 miles an hour. We ain't got time to think. We barely got time to think about ourselves, let alone anybody else. And so how do you slow down to be able to really understand what someone's saying and try to put yourself in their shoes so that way you can help solve the problem? Because at the end of the day, most people we're having conversations to help people through things, and we don't listen enough, right? Because we're always busy thinking about what we're going to say next. And I teach this when I teach sales. Salespeople are guilty of this. Is like, we just want to get to the next part of the sales process. Like, we don't even care what the customer says. We're just going to keep hammering. Mm-hmm. Well, human communication is the same way. Like, whether it's, visionary to integrator to leadership team member, spouses and children, all that stuff. Anybody you communicate with, we got to stop. We got to pause. The only way we can do that is if our snow globe is settled. So, like, a little bit of meditation, a little bit of silence. Use ChatGPT to organize your to-do list, get it all out, so that way your brain's not filled with clutter. So then you can actually become more present. And when you're more present and someone's telling you something, you can actually feel inside of, like, where they're coming from. Whether you've experienced the same thing or not, you've had enough life experience that you can at least relate to something. And you can have a lot of empathy, for that situation. And sometimes that's all you need to do is just hold space for that person. You don't even actually need to solve the problem. Half the time, if we just shut up and listen and say, wow, how do you think you want to handle that? And then they basically will solve their own problem for you. All you have to do is sit there and just ask that question. And so I think through my experiences, to get to your answer to this question, is everyone's going through something. I know, because I've went through a lot of crap. And it's like, dude, they're a human on the other side. I don't care if they're a billionaire or the janitor. Doesn't really matter. We all have a story. We're all worth so much, because human life is so precious. Like, you have to want to be connected to humans like that. You have to, but you have to go through a transformation process yourself to be able to get to that level.
Yeah, and the relationships are important to you. You can tell that when we talk to you, that it's really important, that human connection you have with one another. So when you talk about a lot how relationship capital is really the currency of leadership. So why do you believe investing in people really is the greatest return for a business owner?
Well, for a business owner specifically, probably it's just because your whole business is made up of people. I mean, and 87% of your problems are people problems, right? So, because everything revolves around people. And so the more that you can put into goodwill, right? Emotional equity that you've built into the humans that you're leading. You're like I'll use another biblical term. It's like you're like a shepherd, right? I used this term the other day. The fence that you have is like your structure and your your boundaries, if you will. Your focus and your passion, your purpose, and you have a light fence. And then, because if we didn't have a fence, people would just be wandering everywhere, right? And we wouldn't be able to corral and push them through a vision that we have. But you have to just take care of every single one of those sheep, right? Because, they're all so important. They all work together. And I don't remember the exact terminology, but like someone told me, I think like if you get people to work together, like if you have like 2 people and then 4 people, like it's kind of like the ox philosophy. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but like you have an outsized return when they're all working together. It's not just, I'm not explaining that right. Alex, Alec, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think it's that you got the oxen that are yoked together, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to say. Yeah, it's better than just people, it's like 2 + 2 = 6 instead of 4, and I think when you can pour into people, you can have, some structure, some frameworks that kind of everybody can kind of play with and be on the same team with. You're going to get an outsized return versus, if you have a 10-person company and someone else has a 10-person company, they're running it like a Swiss watch. That 10-person company could, do $10 million while you're struggling to do $1 million. That could be something like that. And that's because picking the right people, pouring into those people, and keeping them there. I think you guys know this, that retention is probably one of the 8th wonders of the world.
Yes, for sure. On this podcast, we talk a lot about hiring right fit leaders, people who protect the culture and extend the founder's vision. From your work with entrepreneurs, why do you think getting the right leader in the right seat is so critical for a company's long-term health?
I would say, you say you're just talking about the right leader or people in general?
I'm talking about the right leader in the right seat. So, how is that critical for an organization's long-term health?
Well, especially when we talk about the number two, because the visionary can't do it all. The entrepreneur can't do it all, right? Because we've already realized that there's a lot of blind spots that they have because they're trying to do too much. There's 1,000 ideas. We're idea machines, right? We see 10 years into the future. We get really excited. We create a lot of momentum, but we lack a lot of follow through, right? And so when you don't have the right leaders, your culture is going to break. Your standards are going to slip. You're going to spend too much time putting out all the fires. You're going to get burnt out, right? The business becomes a little bit more reactive than proactive. And so right fit leaders are basically the ones that actually carry that culture. They're the ones that can execute the vision that you have in your mind. So then that way, man, like that feels good. Like it really feels good to have an idea and then actually see it come to fruition. That's awesome. Right fit leaders are modeling the values, right? They're enforcing the standards. They're the example, right? They're setting the tone, the energy. They're protecting the atmosphere. They're communicating with radical honesty. I learned that word. Gino actually was talking about that. I'm in one of his mastermind groups, and he was talking about that. I think last month was this term, radical honesty. But also with love, do it with love, right? Put a lot of love in it, right? And so, culture is not going to scale through process and policies. I can tell you that it's going to scale through people who live it. And when you have the right leader extending the visionary's impact, they're going to make sure that the vision stays viable. They're going to make sure that the mission stays alive. They are going to make sure the core values are like really just emboldened and emblazoned and it's going to be so good. It's like why Chick-fil-A is so successful, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, man, like you walk into one of them Chick-fil-A's and you can just feel it. It's awesome to walk into. And they bring a little bit of structure because most of the time without a number two that is more organized, there's so much chaos. Like there was so much chaos in my organization before I hired my integrator. And most of the companies that I walk into, at the end of the day, if they usually aren't calling me if they have a really great integrator for the most part, because they won't have as many problems, right? And so getting that number two, and I think we've been working together for the last year. I think I've referred you half a dozen people so far. I'm actually in Florida right now, and one of your clients actually, their number two just started on Monday, and so it's really cool to see this in action, right? And it already feels better around here because now the visionary doesn't have to do everything, right? And they can actually have a great company that doesn't have all the peaks and valleys. They can just kind of steadily climb up the mountain. Even though there is no mountain, it's all just a journey. Just remember that.
Yeah. Like you, I meet with a lot of founders through my work at Vision Spark, and a lot of times they feel very isolated and disconnected when they're at the top like that. How do you really help them to reconnect with their purpose, their people, and their vision and not feel so alone?
Well, trying to get them around some other people, each other, just to kind of talk about those things. Instead of talking about sales tactics and marketing tactics and hiring tactics, we just talk about life, and we just share stories, right? Storytelling is key, of like what worked and what doesn't work. We can learn from each other, kind of like the things that we mentioned earlier. So those are what I would recommend.
Yeah, very good. Benny, I got one more question for you, and you alluded to this earlier, but I want you to put your shoes in the position of a visionary, and they need an integrator, but they don't even know where to start. Like, what advice would you give them?
They don't know where to start. Well, they know they need one though. They know what they know what an integrator is, or they've heard
They know
the
what an
term?
integrator is. They've heard about the concept. They're that snow globe with lots of snow.
Mm-hmm.
And like they're just confused. They're not sure if they can afford it. They're not sure if someone's on their team can do it, what the responsibilities are. What are they going to do once the integrator comes in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the first step is really just, the book Rocket Fuel changed my life. It's funny too, because I just got to go interview Mark C. Winters for his new book called Visionary, it's really good. That book's awesome. But when I read that book, there's a framework in there, of like, what a visionary and integrator combo duo is supposed to look like. Right. And then it's like, all right, well, they do a good job of selling me on it. Like now I need it. And so the first thing I did is, I wanted both. I wanted both an implementer and I wanted an integrator. And there's a big distinction. But I'm like a kid that wants to, I want it all. Right. And so first thing is get some wise counsel, find somebody, whether it's, people in the, business world, EOS world, strategic coach world, whatever world that you're in, find somebody that, this is why you have to connect with other business owners that has a decent number two, or has already been there, done that, got the t-shirt, like they've at least went through the process. And then there's a couple of different ways to tackle it. You can try to do it your old fashioned way. Like you can get all your job descriptions ready. You can use AI to write all the stuff out and talk about everything that you want and ask it to give you feedback. You could call someone like me, that's, talked to a lot of different business owners and got a lot of things. You can find a specialist like you guys. I feel like you guys are like, this is what you guys do. And they all can work. It's just like, how do you, I prefer to take my money and collapse time. But if you don't have money, then you're gonna have to spend more time on it. Right. And so there's an investment of time and money that you can shrink the learning curve down. And so based on wherever you're at in the journey, you just kind of have to figure out what works for you. A lot of the clients that I work with, they want to collapse the time. They'd rather spend the money and collapse the time, which I always advise, because you can never get your time back. You can always make more money. And a good number two, like you shouldn't be hiring them unless you're not going to get an outsized return on the investment. So let's just say, you got to spend $100,000 to $200,000 on an integrator. Well, you should be able to make another $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 by having that integrator there within the first 12 months to 24 months. So you're going to get a return. And guess what? The best part is you're going to get your time back because you're not going to have to do it. And so that time is priceless. You can't really put a dollar amount on your piece. And a good integrator will bring you peace.
Man, that was really well said. And Benny, how do listeners find out about you and what you do and the pond?
Yeah, I'm hard to find. BennyFisher.com. That's it. You just type Benny Fisher in on LinkedIn, Instagram. You just type it into your URL, BennyFisher.com. And that's it. Like
there's only one Benny Fisher. You're the only one.
I mean, I got the only domain, so that's for sure. But yeah, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. You can email me. My email is real creative. It's Benny@BennyFisher.com. Got to keep it simple, Alec. As visionaries, we need to keep it simple.
That's right. Love it. So if you're a visionary looking to elevate your leadership team, surround yourself with the right team or the right integrator. You can connect with us at Vision Spark. We help you hire right fit leaders so your company can scale with confidence and culture. Benny, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And until next time, lead with clarity, hire with intention, and keep building the team that brings your vision to life.
Thanks for listening to Right Fit Leader, brought to you by Vision Spark. Have questions or ready to hire your right fit leader? Email us at discover@vision-spark.com. Until next time, remember Vision Spark is your go-to partner for finding leaders and building teams.